Discord, mad fun. Didn't realize that having a bunch of people together in one place is actually a fun experience to talk about random things and yap about hoo-ha and who did what and what did someone cheat on your bitch. That's crazy. But when it comes down to it, it's been a fun time talking about anime lollies and things of the sort like that. And honestly, if you want to jump on in, please do. That whole link has been up for about, it's gonna be like a 7-day limit. So, you know, if you haven't gotten in yet, go ahead and get into it. The more people will be fun and it's nice. Again, keep your respects about each other. Don't necessarily be on bullshit and we won't have a damn problem. So there is very much that. But anywho, when it comes down to it though, we got some news to talk about. And it's some very annoying ass news, which granted a lot of this news has been annoying just in general because literally it is so crazy that a lot of these companies, once again, like clockwork, do not give a damn about actual predators and actually trying to take down people that, you know, is obviously very much an advocate for things of child abuse and things like that in higher places. No, they'll worry about fiction and fictional content and things of the sort like that before any other reason of to actually take down any real deal predator. And it's annoying. There was a video I saw Chibi Reviews made talking about, you know, a person, I believe, I guess from Dublin essentially, was basically going to, or at least was trying to go to a New York anime convention, and maybe it was like for Brown Dust too, maybe, we don't know what if that was the case or not, but essentially they got stopped along their way by Homeland Security and essentially Dublin police and stuff like that, and then they got arrested for anime. Essentially, what I would assume is literally like obviously things of lolly nature and things of the sort, like, you know, things of anime aesthetic. I would assume that that is the case. And obviously, like he had said in his video, he was basically just saying like this is a terrifying sign, and essentially things like this, small things like this that will build up eventually will lead into people revolting back, and it will build up like some new dictatorship and stuff like that too, which at this point nothing in this world would surprise me, to be honest. So I think we are a little bit far off for something like that to happen. In a way, kinda. I wouldn't be a giant surprise to man if that ends up being the case, because again, it is very weird and very strange how so much has happened within the last little late bits of, you know, July, and essentially everybody been going hog wild over censorship and what you can and cannot say in the UK and how they are, and basically just having like lots of people in power being really retarded and just being like, yeah, we're gonna go ahead and take away your VPN access and age verification, and everybody's gonna be forced to get, you know, raped basically by all this legislation that we're passing in the EU and all this sort of stuff with the UK and everything. And it's so weird. It's such a weird time that we're in, honestly. Again, we have actual menaces, legitimate menaces that exist within, you know, high-end circles of rich people, of power, of control, of governments, and all that sort of stuff, and that people can clearly see there is something shady going on, and probably you could call out if you have exactly, you know, all the evidence and everything, which probably people do have, but they are so hell-bent on controlling the populace 5 times more than they are willing to control, you know, what's going on in a lot of these higher up places, right? It doesn't make sense. To be honest, the best example to give like this is like beating a dead horse, right? Except they didn't stop at beating the damn horse. They basically start making lectures at it, even though the horse is obviously effing dead, and then essentially they just continue doing so, and then some random white woman comes through and it gets F by the horse, which, you know, that's just how a lot of really weird white women like to be. But when it comes down to it though, it's just weird. It's crazy that this is again all happening so damn quickly, and it's a very much baffling that you can't even go to like an anime convention if you're like out of state, or I won't say out of state, but like out of the country to go to another country, and then essentially people will halt you for that reason, right? Now, granted, there is places where, you know, things like lolly and anime and stuff like that is, you know, illegal, which is really weird and dumb, but it is what it is, and that's just how certain countries roll. But when it comes down to it, though, that shouldn't be happening. Not like this. And essentially, especially in this sort of period of time where everything's getting censored and anime has been getting the long dick of the stick when it comes down to censorship for a long ass period of time, far more harder than a lot of other stuff, it's not a good sign. It's definitely not a good sign, and we need to all be very much wary when it comes down to it. The only sad issue about this problem is that there is so many damn enemies that is out there that is very much against the public and against people in general for literally no reason, to the point it's very hard to kind of even figure out who do we target, how do we go about that, what do we actually do about the situation, can things even be solved, and all that sort of jazz. Like, it's kind of hard at this point, which again, I don't see why controlling the populace in all these different places needs to be a thing of what they're trying to do. Like, again, you're just basically asking for somebody to get out of line and then do something completely crazy, and the people are going to be behind that person versus, you know, somebody that would be very much for legislation and things like that. Because again, like I said before, it's really going to be up to people to take care of people and, you know, help them out in whatever ways that they can when it comes down to it. We need to hella support each other in times like these, because essentially no government gives a damn, no people in power gives a damn, no rich people, no, you know, people that actually has the influence and all that sort of jazz, they don't really give a damn. Ultimately, it's about self, and for a lot of those people that has those sorts of, you know, places of power, even people on the content creator sort of things, inside of things and stuff like that, people that hasn't really yapped about this at all, that absolutely can, that's within their whole ass field, but they just don't, is very much still just what you basically kind of clump those people up together. Maybe not the highest way, but you can definitely do so, because again, it's all very ridiculous. It is all very stupid, and it's very controlled and corporate, and it's something that honestly I don't think anybody really sit here and likes. Funny enough, the brand risk stuff that they was very much, you know, hounding about when it comes down to it before, none of that brand risk stuff would matter too damn much if payment processors did their jobs, if governments would literally just do what they should do and work for the people, by the people, and things of sort like that. But instead of serving themselves like a lot of the rich, hungry ass people are just doing. Again, there is no reason why we need to be in this sort of position, and no reason at all that that's been the case. Hell, this is sort of the reason why you're getting people that has never really thought about joining into politics and stuff like that, join into politics, whether to talk about it or actually serve on, you know, some type of governmental level when it comes down to it, right? I believe, if I'm not mistaken, I want to say there's a Halo director, music director, that's now trying to get into Congress or something like that, and whatever, which is like, I would never expect something like that, but you need, unfortunately, you need people like this, because the old system of how it works is buns. It's ass. It's just hot buns. It's not a good time. That's why in Japan, you have someone like Ken Akamatsu, who, you know, did their own manga and stuff like that. They're in the same sort of spell of position of trying to preserve anime and manga and things of the sort like that. And I very much am for that. And most people that is very much like me would be very much for that when it comes down to it. You need people like this at the governmental level now, because ultimately, if things continue to go where they go, we're not really going to get a good way of solving the issue here. We're not really going to get a good way of fixing a whole bunch of nonsense, because I'm not going to lie, a lot of this stuff is just very much not needed. It's very much not needed, and then essentially it's forcing people's hands to get into positions of talking about things like this or just getting them involved in it way more than they ever thought they would. And then the sadder part is, a lot of the time these governments and whatever, they want to basically try to make this a left or right issue or whatever the hell, and essentially it's none of that, because effectively it bothers everyone across the board. And it's weird again how so many people see this and don't do anything about it, much less people see this and don't call this out online when it comes down to it, because shit like this needs to be called out. You should very much be upset and annoyed about things like this, and the fact that it's gotten this damn far, to the fact that people can get arrested for literally saying I love bacon, which I'm not shitting you, that did end up happening over in the UK or whatever, in the European places and stuff like that. That did happen at a protest. They got arrested for loving bacon or saying they said that out loud, and that's crazy to me. The same kind of craziness that gets you arrested for posting a meme on Twitter when it comes down to it over there. If I ever had any money whatsoever, my bum ass is not going to the UK or any part of Europe when it comes down to it, because high key, these laws are absolutely ridiculous. A dude could sneeze at this point and essentially police is there and they're just like, hey bitch, go to prison. What the hell? Like that's what it feels like. It feels like that's what's gonna happen over there, and it's not a good time. Of all places where you want to push people, you sure you want to do that with the Europeans? You sure you want to do that to your European populace who has a track record of doing a lot of wild things in the past to actual people in power, like cutting people's heads off and beheading them and all that sort of stuff? I ain't saying that's what's gonna happen, but honestly, my whole thing is just don't push European people. They're already annoying and sad people when it comes down to the things they like especially when it comes to wrestling, because dear gosh, no one seems to be happy when it comes down to wrestling as a whole. They always gotta say some mean ass shit, which I know that's just how European people are, but still, gosh damn. But when it comes down to it though, you just don't want to push those sort of people. It's not every European that's mean like that, by the way, just a lot of you. But you can't tell me when you watch things like a What Culture or like a WrestleLamia or like a Wrestle Talk or whatever, you can't tell me that the salt levels is high over there and they're not, and that's just how they daily just usually is at times. Sometimes I could just see that. That's one thing I noticed when I first watched wrestling YouTube, but that's besides the dang point. High key, at this point, I don't think anybody should be blind or just straight up try to ignore a lot of this that's been happening recently when it comes down to what's been happening, especially just in terms of our entertainment. Because high key, the more you ignore it, the more this problem is going to be a long lasting effect. At this point, you need to also just jump in, just be like, all right, need to know this stuff because this shit is ass, and essentially it's just not a good time for anybody, right? And especially when it comes down to, the case of anime. Again, I understand that people ain't necessarily effing with lollies in any shape and form. Like, I get that. I understand if you don't want that. But at the same time, it just like a lot of stuff, it shouldn't be banned. It shouldn't be banned outright. Because again, having things, even if it's something that is terrible and should be banned, you need to have that history of it being there, so either A, it can be not repeated, but ultimately when things like this, ultimately gets in the face of government and they do ban certain things like this, they're just making things one to go back into just to be repeatable again. And it's very much weird. And something like art and something like, anime and things like that has really no reason to get banned at all. And to be honest, if I'm Japanese and I see all this shit happening, I'd be hella offended. I'd be hella mad, because essentially you're telling me my culture is not necessarily good enough, or it's basically some weird shit that you don't approve of, which is absolutely wild. Like, it just is. It's not necessarily doing anything actually illegal. It's just literally just saying, hey, your culture is weird and we don't accept that shit, so we're gonna basically start banning your culture. We're gonna ban you from being Japanese, and essentially that's what they're kind of telling you, right? Like, again, you might think this sounds outlandish and foolish, but again, have you not seen how people been acting? That's just how it is recently. Again, and I will always say this, lolly is very much a sketchy subject to kind of bring up when it comes down to it, especially when you start getting into like the actual subgenres of lolly. Because like I said before, anime lolly, perfectly fine. It's fictional, it's cartoon, it is 2D. We can clearly tell it has the anime aesthetic here. So why the hell should that be banned? Literally no clue. That's just like a what the hell situation are we doing here thing, you know? And that's just how it is. And there should really, no matter what the case is, should never really be any problem with that. But then you get cases where, you know, I can understand, or at least if they were to go after something, I would understand maybe things of computer generated 3D models of lollies and things like that, or whatever you want to call it when it comes down to that, because essentially, yeah, that's a bit more on the more realistic side or realism side, which there is gray areas of laws that does exist when it comes down to it, because yeah, it is a gray ass area, like it's not real, but also it is sort of looking realish, but at the same time it's not really a real thing that's here. So on that level, if you know things got complicated on that, then sure, I understand it's still, you know, an attack on expression, but I still get it though, right? But ultimately it's just the fact that you can't have, it's really not them just going after one specific thing, it's them going after basically everything. And it's not even just about obviously fiction. When I say everything, I mean to the way you live, how you talk to things, in terms of like how you talk about things online and stuff like that. They are just trying to whoop your ass in every sort of direction, and it's just not good. It's just not good. And literally you can't just sit here and try to take people's rights away, or pretend to say, oh, we're doing this actually, but you know, even though it's actually a full-on attack on your rights, but they'll never say it out loud. You can only, again, BS people so damn much before they get tired of it, before they actually start wanting to clap back in some shape and form and take less than legislative and legal ways to handle certain things, right? That's just how it is. You can't push people so much until they get tired of the nonsense. That's just how people is in general. Humans are one group of people that do not like being silent, and when the silence happens, and when the silence reaches a breaking point, people will clap back, and the clapback will happen very hard. I don't think you need to have an example for it or a reminder of it, but it literally happens a lot of the times when it comes down to, you know, people getting bullied oftentimes. And then you wonder why a certain shooting of a certain building kind of always happens, because sometimes people push buttons that you shouldn't push, and then shit goes down. It's not good for anybody, and ultimately it would never be a thing if you literally just treat people with respect, give them what they need to, you know, give when it comes down to it, and essentially just leave people alone. That is literally all you have to do. And the moment you start pressing buttons against people, things not just like that just happens, but people in general will just push back and then show you actually what they're about, because that's just how it is. You can't just keep doing this sort of shit forever, because ultimately ain't nobody's gonna sit here and for really nothing just like this lasts forever. It just can't. You can't necessarily do that, and ultimately people are gonna get tired of it and try to find some sense of normalcy within themselves and then forget everybody else, because that's just how it is. But yeah, ultimately I did want to just talk about this whole thing, because it again, it's very much weird and crazy. We got a whole list of people that went to a certain island and all that sort of jazz, and you can very much get rid of those people. But now let's worry about regular people that literally does effing nothing, and just get those guys. Just get those guys more than the obviously clean, pristine, rich people that you will never have a problem out of, because they are so perfect. They are so clean. They're like the purest form of water. Even though they are the muddiest shit in the world, and you decide to drink that shit, it's poison. You just poison yourself. It was very effective. But yeah, that's again really all I want to say for this one. So hopefully you did enjoy. If you did, be sure to like, share, subscribe, hit the bell notification on your way out. Also follow my socials, and if you'd like to donate to the channel, Kofi and Cash App is available as well. And if also you'd like to join up on the Discord server, please do, with the description. Honestly, it's the top one. Yo, check it out. We need more people. And until then, it's been Boy J, signing off. Have a blessed day.